and it gives me enormous pleasure to launch The Plot to Kill Peter Fraser by David McGill.
The only former Labour leader I've seen any mention of this year is Peter Fraser. No Longy, no Kirk, no Helen Clark, but this man, here he is next to Trump. And it's a contrast in opposites. Him proposing world peace, and this man likely to wreck it. We're all dreading that. I wanted to mention a couple of things. We have Bill Sheet here somewhere, who met Peter Fraser when he was aged 12. And we have Maya, who's aged almost 4 months, the baby for the politician opportunity, photo opportunity. The page and a half coming up. I wanted to let one of my characters give you an indication of why Fraser came back here with enemies, which is what drives the plot of this book. This man is about to be murdered, by the way. It's a prelude. Okay? And he has swum to Petone to get hold of newspapers and cigarettes that he and his fellow internees on Soames Island, enemy aliens they were called. They were Nazis, they were Jews, they were socialists, they were people with a German name. That was enough to have them on the island throughout the Second World War. And this is based on a man who actually did this, because when I was writing Island of Secrets about the island, I was contacted by a boy from somewhere up Hawke's Bay way, who was now, of course, elderly, who had been one of the boys that supplied the cigarettes and newspapers to this prisoner who illegally swam to Petone once a week. And here he is, swimming back in a southerly, with no idea what's awaiting him. It was from the newspapers, this is him speaking, he got the idea to do something for the country that had incarcerated him because he kept his German name. He had listened for years to the socialist prisoners, validating the beliefs that had seen them put on Soames as enemy aliens, dragged away by the police to become the first prisoners, before even the rabid Nazis. He was neither a socialist nor a Nazi, and he brooded on the injustice of his incarceration as an enemy alien. Like his wife, he was a Dinkum Kiwi, even if he kept his German name, unlike his opportunist brother. There are little hints here, by the way, of what's to come. His brother never visited him on the island. He boasted about naturalising his name, said anyone with half a brain would have done so. He would show his brother that you could have a German name and still serve your country. Up until now, he had written to his MP, Walter Nash, demanding justice and release. He never got a reply. Now he had something to demonstrate his patriotism, which is why he'd not written to the useless Deputy Nash, but to the Prime Minister, Peter Fraser, about these secret meetings on the island. The Nazis read the newspapers he brought back, and they seized on the Prime Minister, that's Peter Fraser's comments about liberating enemy territories, setting up trusteeships, as Grant mentioned, for colonial territories in the Pacific, denying Germans and everybody else, including the British and the Americans, any post-war rights of sovereignty over these little island nations. The newspapers reported US Secretary of State Cordell Hull furious with Fraser, alleging his comments smacked of communism and interference in America's vital strategic interests. As we all know, some years later, David Longy also copped it from another Secretary of State, US Secretary of State. The Nazis on the island agreed with Hull, but he thought them deluded. Fraser was pushing for small countries to be heard in this new body, that was to replace the League of Nations. There was a big conference in San Francisco later this month. This is 3 months before the novel proper gets going. Fraser would be there campaigning to make the world a better place than the great powers had in mind. He wanted to deny the great powers a veto. He failed in that, unfortunately. He never wanted another Czechoslovakia, but of course America and Russia, amongst others, invaded other countries because they had the right of veto. Given that Fraser was making enemies of leaders among the British, Americans and Russians, with his outspoken lobbying to deny the great powers' rights of veto and to relinquish their colonial possessions, it was possible that these fanatical Nazis could be recruited by any side of the capitalist or communist divide. It is important that these prisoners be interviewed before they were released in 1945. That was what he was doing, alerting the Prime Minister to this local threat. He felt the rain on his face, the wind was easing. Revived, he increased his stroke. He'd done his bit, he posted his letter to the Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Peter Fraser. Tomorrow or the next day, the Prime Minister could sit down with his cup of tea and scones and digest this warning. Read on.